What do you think the value for leaders is of having a map?
Like all graphical instruments, it allows you to see the whole thing instead of the person trying to reconstruct in their own mind what this probably looks like. You're taking something which is social and emotional and turning it into a visualization. And when they get feedback on their own behavior, this is particularly valuable because now they can see, how this worked out for them. And so they're much more willing to take it seriously because it's obvious that, they're somewhere along these various lines. And if you can see where you are, it's so much better to, decide what you need to do next.
I mean, it provides useful insight for a team leader because it allows them to take stock of their team and also to have a shared view of the organizational culture around them. If you had a CEO as a customer, would you say this is something a CEO could use to take a health check of the entire organization?
Yes. It's always interesting to see where the pockets of pathological and generative activity are, as well as bureaucratic. Maybe bureaucratic is not a good answer. The organization is constantly faced with changes. I mean, in a world where AI is changing things very rapidly, then you need people who are highly responsive. And so if they're still doing, Plan B and it's not working out, you need to know, but it's not going to be welcomed.
What was fascinating was that the organizations with the strongest generative culture, the leaders got very exercised immediately on all their weaknesses, on all the things that were the least generative. They didn't spend any time talking about what was good. They focused like a laser on all the problem areas, and they talked about that. And in contrast, organizations with a less generative culture were much more inclined to sort of talk about the positives. I'm curious as to what you think might have been going on there in those two different reactions.
When you have really strong leaders, in the sense of being capable, they're going to focus on the situation, and they want to know all the problems that they might have, because it doesn't bother their ego that maybe they're imperfect, but they need to know about the imperfections because it's going to affect performance.
We'd asked team members to report on what they felt about workload balance, stress, potential burnout. And in each case, in these generative cultures, people reported that capacity was stretched right to the edge. Now, at the same time, they also reported that they were happy with their current work-life balance. And this was a tension, there was a paradox there. So we explored it with them. What do you think might have been going on for the people in the team who were reporting that they were right at the edge of their capacity, but also that they were happy with the work-life balance?
It's meaning. The people who are happy with work may be overstretched in terms of physical endurance, but they feel that they're doing something valuable. But meaning is something that has a great deal to do with burnout. And essentially, when meaning vanishes, what happens is people burn out. And so this could in fact, it does happen when people are not working up to capacity. I would often ask my students, how many of you are working at full capacity at work in terms of your intellectual abilities? And the answer was usually somewhat negative. It's like, no, we're not really being challenged, okay? People, very much like racing drivers, like the idea that they can go at 10 tenths. And the ability to be able to perform at high speed is something that you look for in racing drivers. Well, it's also true of research and development. It's true of marketing and so forth. People like to think that they're stretched and they're actually doing what they're capable of.
We asked people who'd had the survey report, and one of the questions was if you could follow up the survey, what would be most valuable? And we gave them 5 choices. 100% of the respondents chose as the option, expand the survey to a larger group now, and then repeat it in 6 months' time. What does that suggest to you? What's going on?
They feel empowered by having gotten the feedback, and obviously it's nice to have, good feedback, But that's the thing, is that people who are happy in their work want to know more about it.